Anna had always been afraid of the dark. Even when she was a little girl, she thought there were scary creatures lurking in the dark, ready to jump out from around corners and scare her. As she grew up, she learned to deal with that fear, but it never completely left her. She tried to avoid situations where she had to be alone in the dark and always left the lights on at night. One day, coming home late at night after a long day at work, she noticed someone standing in the corner of her room. At first, she thought it was just a shadow play caused by the dim light of the street lamps, but when she turned on the light, there was no one there. Her heart beat faster, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She decided it was just her imagination playing tricks on her and tried to calm down. The next day, the fear returned with renewed vigor. Anna decided to spend the evening with her friends and invited them over. They laughed and discussed topics ranging from work to their latest adventures. But as soon as it got dark, the talk of ghosts and the other world began to scare her. Her friends shared stories about how they had been frightened by spirits and how they had encountered unexplained phenomena. Anna tried to distract herself, but her thoughts returned to the corner of the room where she had seen the shadow. When her friends dispersed, Anna was alone in her apartment. She felt vulnerable and unprotected. Fear flared up inside her again. Deciding that she needed to deal with this feeling, she walked to the corner of the room and stopped for a moment. She decided to check to see what was lurking there. Instead of finding something scary there, all she saw was an old closet that stood in the corner. With curiosity, she opened it and discovered that her childhood toys were stored there. Teddy bears, dolls, and even old books with colorful illustrations. In that moment, it became clear to her that the fear was just a reflection of her own experiences and memories of her childhood. These toys reminded her of carefree days, of playing and dreaming of adventures. Anna realized that the shadow in the corner was not an enemy, but simply a part of her past. She decided not to be afraid of the dark any more and began meditating before bed to calm her mind. Every night, she turned on a soft light and spent time thinking about her fears and how they affected her life. Each day, her confidence grew. Over time, Anna began to notice that the dark no longer frightened her the way it used to. She began to spend evenings with the windows open, letting the night air fill the room. Now she could enjoy the sounds of the night, the rustle of leaves outside the window, and the distant howl of the breeze. Fear gave way to calm and acceptance. Anna realized that fear was just an emotion that could be controlled. Now she could fall asleep in the dark, knowing that she had the power within her to overcome any obstacle. Jacob had always dreamed of becoming a mountaineer. Since childhood, he had admired the majestic mountains and the beauty of nature that surrounded him. Every time he looked at the mountain peaks, his heart was filled with excitement and the desire to conquer them. However, with each ascent, he was overcome with dread. He was aware of his fear of heights, but that didn't stop him from trying to conquer new peaks. Each time he climbed higher, his inner conflict became more acute. One day, after much thought and preparation, Jacob decided to join a group of experienced climbers to climb one of the most famous and challenging mountains in the country, a peak that beckoned to many but was known for its difficult sections. The group consisted of people of different ages and levels of training, and all were enthusiastic. The climb started well. The sun was shining brightly, and the group was friendly and cohesive. They exchanged jokes and cheered each other on, which gave Jacob confidence. But when they reached a difficult section of the path that required special concentration and skill, Jacob felt a familiar sense of unease. His heart raced and his hands began to sweat. He stopped to catch his breath and looked down. The world seemed so small. At that moment, a panorama unfolded in front of him that reminded him of why he had chosen this path. He remembered his dreams of freedom and the importance of overcoming his fears. Jacob closed his eyes and began breathing deeply, trying to calm his nerves. Instead of focusing on the altitude and his fear, he began to think about the beauty of the world around him, the majestic cliffs, the green valleys below, and the way the wind gently touched his face. He imagined standing on the summit and admiring the view that would open up before him. With each step, he felt more and more confident. He began to realize that fear was a natural reaction, but it shouldn't control him. Instead, he began to use his anxiety as motivation to move forward. He turned to his group mates for support, and they helped him deal with his anxiety. Each time he took a step forward, he felt his fear recede. When they finally reached the summit, Jacob couldn't believe his eyes. The panorama was incredible. The mountains stretched to the horizon, and the clouds seemed so close you could touch them with your hand. In that moment, he realized that his fear of heights would never completely disappear. It was part of who he was, but now he knew how to deal with it. He had learned to accept his emotions and use them to his advantage. At the top of the mountain, Jacob felt a rush of joy and freedom. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh mountain air. All around him were his friends who shared this moment of triumph. They laughed together and shared how each of them had overcome their fears. Jacob realized that not only had he conquered the top of the mountain, but he had also triumphed over himself. From that day forward, he continued climbing with renewed strength and confidence. Each new climb was not only a physical challenge for him, but also an opportunity to grow emotionally. He became more open to new challenges and began to inspire others by his example. Jacob realized that fear is not an enemy, but a friend who teaches us to be stronger and braver. Although he was still in awe of heights, he now knew that every step forward was a step toward freedom. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. Share your stories and impressions in the comments, and maybe your story will become a masterpiece in one of our upcoming videos. Let's dive into the world of slimes and stories together.